Welcome to Jazz Piano Skills. I'm Dr. Bob Lawrence. It's time to discover, learn, and play jazz piano. Today you are going to discover Charlie Brown's Pianist, Vince Guaraldi. You are going to learn form, melody, chords, and voicings for two classic Vince Guaraldi Christmas tunes. And you're going to play essential progressions, chord-scale relationships, and harmonic pairs to guide your development of improvisational ideas when playing the classic Vince Guaraldi Christmas tunes. Those tunes, Oh Christmas Tree and Christmas Time is Here. So as I always like to say, regardless of where you are in your jazz journey, a beginner, an intermediate player, an advanced player, or even if you consider yourself an experienced and seasoned professional, you will find this Jazz Piano Skills podcast lesson exploring a Vince Guaraldi Christmas to be very beneficial and festive. So if you are new to Jazz Piano Skills, if you are a new Jazz Piano Skills podcast listener, I want to take the time right now to personally invite you to become a Jazz Piano Skills member. Visit JazzPianoSkills.com to learn how to activate your membership and to check out all of the abundance of jazz educational resources, materials, and services that are available for you to use to help you become an accomplished jazz pianist. For example, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, you have access to all of the educational podcast packets, the illustrations, the lead sheets, the play-alongs that I develop for every weekly podcast episode. Now, these are invaluable educational tools that will be great, that are great for you to utilize to help you gain a conceptual understanding of the jazz piano skills that we explore, as well to gain a physical command of those jazz piano skills. As a Jazz Piano Skills member, you also have access to the sequential jazz piano curriculum, which is loaded. This curriculum is loaded with comprehensive courses, all of them using a self-paced format, educational talks, interactive media, video demonstrations in all 12 keys of the jazz piano skill, and of course, play-along tracks for you to utilize as well. And as a Jazz Piano Skills member, you also have a reserved seat in the online weekly master classes, which are in essence a 1-hour online lesson with me each and every week. It comes with your Jazz Piano Skills membership. And you also, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, have access to the private Jazz Piano Skills community. Now, this community hosts a variety of engaging forums, podcast-specific forums, course-specific forums, and of course, just general jazz piano forums as well. And last, but certainly not least, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, you have unlimited, private, personal, and professional educational support whenever and as often as you need it. So again, take a few minutes to visit JazzPianoSkills.com to learn more about all the educational opportunities that await you and how to easily activate your membership. There are several membership plans to choose from, and I'm quite certain there's one that will be perfect for you. However, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Let me know. I'm always happy to spend some time with you, answer any questions that you may have, and to help you in any way that I possibly can. Okay, let's discover, learn, and play jazz piano. Let's discover, learn, and play. I'm totally pumped about this. A Vince Guaraldi Christmas. Let's begin with a little introduction to Vince Guaraldi, especially for those of you who may not be aware of this fabulous jazz pianist. Mr. Guaraldi was born July 17th, 1928, and died February 6, 1976, at the young age of 47. Way too young. He is best remembered as the pianist, the composer, the arranger for Charles Schulz. And of course, Charles Schulz was the mastermind behind the animated television adaptations of Charlie Brown and the Peanuts comic strip. So if you are a fan of Charlie Brown, Linus, Lucy, and the whole gang, if you grew up enjoying a boy named Charlie Brown, It's a Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, and of course, if you grew up watching A Charlie Brown Christmas, as I just did the other night, and I did throughout my childhood, then you were enjoying, if you were checking out and enjoying Charlie Brown, you were enjoying the music of Vince Guaraldi. Pretty cool. Now, besides his claim to fame as the pianist, as the composer, the arranger for Charles Schulz, he also had a pretty darn nice jazz career, especially considering he only lived to be 47. He had a pretty nice jazz career playing with such legends, jazz legends as Cal Tjader and Woody Herman, Ben Webster, Stan Getz, to name just a few. And if you're not familiar with Vince's 1962 album, this is the one that I can remember. This was the one that I was introduced to Vince Guaraldi with. And it's 1962 album. It's called Jazz Impressions of Black Orpheus. And if you are not familiar with this album, if you're not familiar with this recording, then I want to strongly recommend that you check it out as soon as possible. So many great tunes on this album, like Samba de Orpheus, Manha de Carnival, or other names for that tune, Black Orpheus, or A Day in the Life of a Fool. There's Moon River, Since I Fell for You. And of course, also included in this on this album is his Grammy Award-winning composition, Cast Your Fate to the Wind. This album, without a doubt, this album should be in your library, in your listening library, absolutely for sure. I read recently where Vince Guaraldi once commented, this is a quote, right, that he said, "I don't think I'm a great piano player, but I would like to have people like me to play pretty tunes and reach the audience. And I hope some of those tunes will become standards. I want to write standards, not just hits." Well, interesting quote, right? I have a couple quick thoughts about this Vince Guaraldi quote. Number one, Vince Guaraldi was an amazing pianist. I think it's so funny that he says, "I don't think I'm a great piano player." He was an amazing pianist. He plays with great energy, great expression, feeling, and passion. And he also apparently was a very humble individual, right? Because he was a great pianist. And this may be why his humbleness may be why his music is so enjoyable, because when he plays, you can immediately tell it's all about the music and it's not about him. That's an invaluable lesson for all of us. And number two, he certainly accomplished his goal of writing standards. His work with Charles Schulz will live forever. And certainly his Christmas standard, Christmas Time Is Here, which we will be exploring today, it has become a Christmas standard indeed, and a favorite for many, including myself, especially at this time of year. If this podcast episode does nothing else but get you familiar with the music of jazz great Vince Guaraldi, then this podcast episode has been a huge success. Check out his music. You're going to love it. So the educational agenda for today is as follows. Number one, we are going to explore two Christmas tunes performed by Vince Guaraldi in Charles Schulz's A Charlie Brown Christmas. Those two tunes, O Christmas Tree, or another name, O Tannenbaum. I love that. And his original composition, Christmas Time Is Here. Number two, I will perform both pieces and then walk you through the form, chords, and voicings that I use when playing these pieces. And number three, I will also highlight various progressions, chord scale relationships, and harmonic pairs that I suggest you should isolate when practicing for developing your improvisational ideas. So if you are a Jazz Piano Skills member, I want you to take a few minutes right now to download and print the illustrations and the lead sheets for this podcast episode. You have access to all of the podcast packets, and you should absolutely be using them when listening to this podcast. And of course, when listening to any of the podcasts, you should be using the podcast packets and absolutely use them when practicing. So check out these podcast packets, because the lead sheets are going to have these tunes laid out for us that we're going to go through today, as well as the voicings that I'm using. So again, just hit the pause button, take a couple minutes right now to access and download the podcast packets, the illustrations, and the lead sheets. And if you are listening to this podcast on any of the popular podcast directories, such as Apple or Google, Amazon, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and on and on and on and on, then be sure to go to JazzPianoSkillsPodcast.com to download the podcast packets. You will find the active download links in the show notes. And one final but extremely important note: if you're thinking that the music of Vince Guaraldi and "Oh Christmas Tree" and "Christmas Time Is Here" that we are about to discover, learn, and play is in some ways, or even if you feel it is all the way over your head, then I would say to you, okay, continue to listen, continue to grow, relax. By listening, you are going to just grow your jazz piano skills intellectually. The fact is that all skills, I mention this every week, all skills are overhead when first introduced. And that is precisely why the first step we always need to take in order to improve our musicianship is to step outside of our comfort zone and listen. All musical growth begins upstairs, mentally, conceptually, before it can come out downstairs physically in your hands. So listen to this podcast lesson now to discover and learn. The play will come in time. I guarantee it. Okay, we are going to begin with "Oh Christmas Tree." And so the very first thing I want to do is let's listen to this tune. So I'm going to bring the ensemble in, and I'm going to play a few choruses of "Oh Christmas Tree." I'm going to do my very best to do it in a kind of a Vince Guaraldi laid-back style. And then we'll, after we listen to it, then I'll break it apart. We'll go through it, section by section, measure by measure, and I'll give you some insight and some pointers on how I approach playing this great Christmas standard. So let's check it out. Let's bring the ensemble in. Here we go. "Oh Christmas Tree." absolutely love that tune, right? It's so funny, man. Every time I play that, I can't help but to think of Charlie Brown, Snoopy, right? You know, that old scraggly Christmas tree with the ornament on it, you know. It's just great. I guess it reminds me of childhood as well. So now let's break this tune apart. And if you have the podcast packets with you, you have the lead sheet. So you have the chord changes in front of you. And I want to just point out a few things right away. And also, if you have the illustrations, you have the voicings mapped out, the contemporary voicings. And these are the primary voicings that I use throughout the tune. We'll talk about those in a minute. But this is a simple little tune, right? It's 16 measures long, so it's not lengthy by any stretch of the imagination. And I actually think of it in two sections, an A section and a B section, which is indicated, marked on your lead sheet. We're in the key of F, and you can see right away, let's talk about section 1. You can see right away in section 1 some very familiar chord changes, right? We have the F major, going to the G minor, A minor, D7 with a flat 9, G minor, C7, back to F major. So in the key of F, right, this is all diatonic movement, more or less, right? The 1 chord going to the 2 chord, going to the 3 chord, 6 dominant, 2, 5, 1. So it's... And then that 5 chord takes us back and we repeat the exact same thing again. It's lovely. Now the B section remains pretty diatonic to the key of F as well. And it goes like this. Okay, so what's happening there? F major, 6, 2, 5, 2, 5. Now here's where it gets tricky. You got the A half diminished going to the D7 flat 9, G minor to C7. A lot of chords in one measure, right? One on each beat. Then we start on the sharp 4 half diminished to end this. Going down to the B flat 7, moving in half steps. Very common motion. And then C dominant taking us back to the beginning. Okay, so you can see that, oh, Christmas tree, nice little form, 16 measures in length, 2 different sections is how I like to think about it. And it's pretty much all diatonic motion in the key of F. So if you look at section A again, if you were going to begin practicing any kind of improvisation and you wanted to use some kind of chord scale relationship approach, you know, it's interesting that the scale of F would work over the entire A section. Even with the D dominant 7 flat 9, you can make the F major scale work. That F major scale would just include a sharp 9 and a flat 13. It wouldn't necessarily have the flat 9 sound in that scale, but it certainly can work over that D dominant 7. So you could simplify your improvisational approach and just keep it all F major through that entire A section. Now the B section starts off diatonic again in the key of F with the 1, 6, 2, 5 chord motion, chord movement. But then we get to the last measure of line 3 there, right? We get to that A half diminished, D7 flat 9, G minor 7, C7. So we have, in essence, a minor 2, 5, 1, A half diminished going to D7 flat 9, going to G minor. But then that G minor can also serve a dual function as the 2 chord, leading us to that C dominant 7, the 5 chord, right? So There, improvisationally speaking, I like to think of the A half diminished and the D7 flat 9 G minor. I like to use the fifth mode, the harmonic minor scale, or the flat 9 flat 13 sound in my improv on that. It's really pretty. Leading back to that G minor. Then we have the B minor 7 flat 5, which is the sharp 4. I treat that as a Locrian, coming from the C major scale, sliding down to the B flat 7, which would be pointing me to the key of E flat in the E flat major scale. Then I have from there the 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, taking me back. Strong resolution going right back in the key of F. And then my last chord, my C7 alt that I like to play. I love the fully altered scale on that. Taking me back to the beginning. So it's a very simple song, not only in terms of form, but it's a very simple song in terms of the harmonic motion. It's primarily diatonic, key of F movement. The last 2 weeks, improvisationally speaking, we put a great emphasis on developing your linear improvisational lines, and thinking linearly as opposed to thinking vertically, right? More horizontal. This is a great tune to practice that because you can use that F major scale moving through these chords and start practicing playing lines that stretch through the bar lines and seamlessly connect the various chords. Not too difficult to do when you can use the same scale over a series of chords, which you can certainly do in "Oh Christmas Tree." Harmonic pairs, I would draw your attention to the very last line, the B half diminished going to the B flat 7. That's a great harmonic pair to practice, or the B flat 7 sliding down to the A minor 7. Those are great harmonic pairs to practice, as we outlined in the last 2 podcast episodes. So, "Oh Christmas Tree" is a great song, not only because it's the time of year, right? But it's one that I think you can get your hands on the chord changes and get your hands on the melody and do some nice, simple improvisational work over the top of these chords. And you can do it rather quickly. Now, the second tune that we're going to look at today is a Vince Guaraldi original. This is his tune, "Christmas Time Is Here." It's a little bit more involved than "Oh Christmas Tree," but it is equally as beautiful. So I want to start off again, as I did with "Oh Christmas Tree," and I want to play "Christmas Time Is Here" for you. So I want to bring the ensemble back in. Let's listen to it first. I'm going to play a couple choruses, then we'll break it apart as well. So here we go. Let's check it out. "Christmas Time Is Here." that a gorgeous piece of music, or is that a gorgeous piece of music? It's beautiful. So this, first and foremost, the very first thing that we need to address right away with Christmas Time is that it's in 3/4 time. It's technically a waltz, right? 3 beats in a measure. So it's going to have a different feel and different groove than Oh Christmas Tree. So I think of this is your classic AABA form. We have an A section, 8 measures long, followed by another A section, 8 measures long, followed by a bridge, 8 measures long, and then a return to the A section for another 8 measures. So it's a classic AABA form. 32 measures in length, 3 sections being identical, and a 4th section being the bridge, slightly different. So let's walk through the A section first. So we have an F major 7, E flat 9, sharp 11. The melody itself is the sharp 11. Listen again. That A natural in the melody against my E flat 9 gives us a sharp 11 sound. And then it repeats itself. Then here we have the sharp 4 half diminished again. I told you it was common. Sharp 4 half diminished, the B minor 7 flat 5. Then it slides down half step. Another half step down, A flat minor. G minor to C7. To F major 9. And the melody note is the note G, which is the 9th. So that sharp 4 half diminish for the second half of the A section here. Sharp 4, sliding down a half step to 4 minor, sliding down a half step to A minor, sliding down a half step to A flat minor, sliding down a half step to G minor. Very common motion in a lot of standards, quite actually. Back to 1. And that's it. That's the entire A section. So it sounds like this. So if you learn those 8 measures, you've learned 3/4 of the tune. The bridge moves into the key of D flat, that key center, and we get this. And it goes to a G flat, or I should say an F sharp 9, sharp 11. Back to our D flat major. F sharp 9, sharp 11. Then we have the same kind of motion again that we experienced in the A section. D flat 9, sharp 11, and again the sharp 11 is the melody. So that's the bridge, okay? So I want to talk a little bit about the harmonic pairs that I would be practicing. This is very different. There's not the diatonic motion that we experienced in Old Christmas Tree, where we could use one scale over the entire A section. Here we're going to have to be a little more crafty with our improvisational choices, and so we're going to lean on our harmonic pairs that we discovered, learned, and played in the last 2 podcast episodes. So the very first harmonic pair that I would encourage you to isolate is the F major 7 to the E flat 9 sharp 11, the first 2 measures of the piece, right? So for the F major 7, you could certainly work off the F major scale. For the E flat 9 sharp 11, you're going to work off the dominant sharp 11 scale, right? So your F major, get that E flat 9 sharp 11. Those 2 scales, F major to E flat sharp 11, E flat dominant sharp 11. So I would isolate those 2 chords side by side, and I would practice my linear improvisation, connecting those two scales as one, creating melodic ideas that flow through the bar line and seamlessly connect those two harmonic sounds. Now, the next harmonic pairs, very interesting in the second four measures of the A section, right? So the B half diminished, again, I would treat as a Locrian. The B flat minor, I'm going to treat that as a 2 chord, as a Dorian, which would point me to the key of A flat. A minor would, again, as Dorian, would point me to the key of G. A flat minor would point me to the key of G flat. I'm treating all these minor as 2 chords. G minor, of course, the 2 chord in the key of F, to my C dominant, to my F major. So what you basically have cascading down, you have, starting with that B half diminished flat 5, you have the key of C, then you have the key of A flat, the key of G, the key of G flat, sliding down to the key of F. So I would work those harmonic pairs. I'd work B half diminished to B flat minor. I'd work B flat minor to A minor as a harmonic pair. I'd practice A flat minor to G minor as a harmonic pair. And then I'd practice my G minor, C7, F major, my 2-5-1. I would practice that linearly as well using the F major scale. So that's it for the A section of Christmas Time is Here. All harmonic pairs, very different than Oh Christmas Tree, where it was very linear. We could practice our linear improvisation, but do so using one scale primarily through the entire tune. Here, not so much. So much harmonic motion moving, and all these chords are pointing us to different key centers. And our job is to have to be able to seamlessly connect those, improvisationally speaking. But the great thing is it's an AABA form. So if you practice this A section, you're really practicing 3/4 of the tune at one time. Now, when we get to the bridge, I would use harmonic pair practicing again, and I would match up my D flat major 7 with my F sharp 9 sharp 11. Right? I'd practice those two. Again, the D flat major 7 I would treat as an Ionian, so I would play the D flat major 7 scale. And for the F sharp 9 sharp 11, I'd play the dominant sharp 11 scale again. I would also encourage you to play the half whole diminished scale. I have not done a podcast episode on that sound yet, but that is coming here soon after the new year. So either one of those two choices, if you're already familiar with the half whole diminished scale, that's a great one to use over the dominant 9 sharp 11 sound, not only for the F sharp 9 sharp 11, but for the E flat 9 sharp 11 in measure 2 and 4 in the very first line as well. Okay, so then the second line of the B section, starting on the A minor 7, treat that as a 2 chord. Actually, I take that back. I'd actually treat that as a 3 chord in the key of F. And then the E flat 9, I would treat as a 5 chord, pointing me to the key of A flat. Then the D9 would point me to the key of G. The A flat 7 would point me to the key of D flat. The G minor 7, the key of F. And then the D flat 9, point me to the key of G flat, which would then, the C13 would point me to the key of F. So I'd slide down to the key of F. So lots of harmonic pairs here to work with, right? The A minor to the E flat 9, great harmonic pair. E flat 9 to D9, wonderful. A flat or D9 to A flat, another great harmonic pair. A flat 7 to G minor 7, great harmonic pair. And then G minor 7 to D flat 9, D flat 9 to C13. This song is laced with all kinds of harmonic pairings that you can isolate to practice your linear improvisation. Now, with regards to the voicings, again, I would draw your attention to the illustrations, the podcast packets, the illustrations that you have access to. Once again, I use primarily chordal voicings, the 4th voicing sounds, contemporary shell voicings when I'm playing this song. So it kind of sounds like. Right? Very transparent, very open, very contemporary sound. And I have all those voicings mapped out for you in the illustrations in the podcast packets that you can explore and study as well. As you can see with both of these tunes, right? Oh, Christmas Tree, Christmas Time is Here. Both lovely songs to have under your fingers, again, especially during this time of the year. Oh, Christmas Tree, 16 measures in length. Christmas Time is Here, 32 measures in length. Old Christmas Tree, 4/4 time. Christmas Time is Here, 3/4 time. Oh, Christmas Tree, primarily diatonic chord motion in the key of F, which allows you to practice linear improvisational ideas using the F major scale. Christmas Time is Here takes you through all kinds of key centers, which is perfect for practicing the harmonic pairs that we explored and we discussed in the last 2 podcast episodes. So, as we always do, we unpack a ton of information in a very short period of time within each one of these podcast episodes. And today was certainly no exception as we explored a Vince Guaraldi Christmas and the standards, Oh, Christmas Tree and Christmas Time is Here. And once again, I want to encourage you to use the podcast packets, the illustrations, which have all the voicings mapped out for you. The lead sheets are there. They give you the harmonic progressions that we walked through today, the chord changes for each one of these tunes. And as you've heard me say over and over and over again, your conceptual understanding ultimately determines your physical development. So the time that you invest in studying the harmonic structure and form and chord changes and voicings of Oh, Christmas Tree and Christmas Time is Here, the return on your investment cannot be adequately expressed. And as always, even with working with these Christmas tunes, always be patient. Developing mature, professional jazz piano skills takes time. So begin structuring your study and your improvisation development after the demonstrations that I modeled for you today in this podcast episode, and you will begin to see, and you will begin to feel, and you'll begin to hear your musical progress. I guarantee it. Well, I hope you have found this Jazz Piano Skills podcast lesson exploring a Vince Guaraldi Christmas to be insightful, to be beneficial, and of course, I hope you found it to be kind of festive, as I mentioned earlier. I want to remind everyone, no masterclass this week or next week. Instead, I want you to spend some time, some precious time with family and friends. And I want to personally wish you and your family a joyous and Merry Christmas, and I want to wish you all many, many blessings in 2022. As always, you can reach me by phone with any questions that you may have, 972-380-8050. My office extension is 211, or if you're more comfortable reaching out by email, my email address is drlawrence, drlawrence @jazzpianoskills.com, or you can use the handy little SpeakPipe widget found throughout the Jazz Piano Skills website. Well, there is my cue. That's it for now. And until next week, enjoy the music of Vince Guaraldi. Enjoy Oh, Christmas Tree and Christmas Time is Here. And most of all, have fun as you discover, learn, and play jazz piano. Merry Christmas.